No matter if points are gained or points are lost, there will be much to discuss. For analysis regarding tonight's Winnipeg Jets game, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mandel. The Illegal Curve post-game show starts now.
Good evening, Winnipeg. Good evening, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this evening on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good evening, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve post-game show. With Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mandel. Dave Manouk getting a well-deserved night off. Believe he's snuggling in bed watching replays of Mad About You, if I'm not mistaken there, Mr. Ginsburg.
A very underrated show, by the way. I felt like Mad About You and Seinfeld were on right around the same time. Like,
they were all part of Must See TV.
Must See TV, right? What was that? Yeah. Fridays or Mondays? I have no idea. That was 20 years ago.
Fridays on ABC. Must See TV was Thursdays on NBC. Mad About You, Friends, Frasier, Seinfeld.
Shout out to Kelsey Grammer. I always felt like Mad About You never got enough. Like, it was an underrated show. Like, Paul Reiser was funny, but I always felt like that show was like always in the shadow of Seinfeld. But I guess you know, when we're doing a sitcom podcast, Drew, maybe we can explore that in further detail. But just wanted to throw that in there. I also enjoyed Helen Hunt. She was good in that series.
Oh, there you go. I'm sure Helen Hunt appreciates the compliment. But yes, Mad About You, an underrated series in the eyes of both Ezzy and myself. I think watching replays of repeats of Mad About You would be maybe a better use of your time rather than watching tonight's Jets Montreal Canadiens game, at least certainly from the perspective of Winnipeg Jets fans, as this was one of the ugliest games, Ezzy, of the season. Certainly up there with some of the ugliness that we saw around Christmas, that game against the Minnesota Wild. But I think it's almost the game that came to mind is that home loss against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Because when you lose to, the Minnesota Wild, well, the Wild are a pretty good hockey team. That sort of happens. When you lose to the Washington Capitals, like the Jets did, right before Christmas.
The Wild won again tonight, by the way, Drew. I'm not sure if you saw that or the people watching saw that, but the Wild are now 5 points back of the Jets, and they have 2 games in hand. So obviously, the Jets still have a decent cushion, but when you're playing a Habs team that, you're much better than, and we'll get into this is
that's
a Habs
what I'm saying.
team.
In terms of playing down to your opponent, this was probably the most the Jets have played down to the opponent. They were outclassed by Montreal. I mean, it wasn't that, the Jets got goalied by any stretch of the imagination or anything like that. Montreal was far and away the better of the two teams tonight. And so it was reminiscent to me of the performance against the Columbus Blue Jackets on home ice, a team that you are ostensibly better than, at least according to the standings this year. The Blue Jackets are way down there as well, not too, similar to the Montreal Canadiens.
And definitely in the Bedard sweepstakes. There's no doubt about that.
Exactly. In the Bedard sweepstakes. But this Montreal Canadiens team, this is just certainly was just far better, far more connected, far more into the game than the Winnipeg Jets, and they are playing, as you and I were discussing before the show, they're playing without 6 regulars in their lineup. So the Winnipeg Jets, who are more or less healthy, for the most part, playing against a weaker opponent in the Montreal Canadiens, who are currently tied for 25th overall in the NHL with the Ottawa Senators. They're not going anywhere fast. They have a litany of injuries, and the Habs just wanted the game more than the Winnipeg Jets. From start to finish, they were the better of the two teams. The Jets certainly just looked, what it was reminiscent of? It was reminiscent of the Jets of last year. Just disconnected, no flow to their game. Everybody sort of playing a one-man game. There was no team aspect to the game. Just a really poor performance by the Winnipeg Jets to start the 5-game road trip. A road trip that'll take them to Toronto on Thursday, and then Ottawa, Philadelphia, and Nashville to wrap it all up. But it does not start on the right note with tonight's defeat in Montreal, Ezzy.
No, and it obviously the Jets don't like playing on Tuesday night, right? Because you mentioned that game against the Wild. That was at home, of course. That was on a Tuesday night. I was in Mexico, so I couldn't join you boys, and you were in Kentucky. So obviously you're able to do the show remotely. I just wasn't able to. But you guys knew I wasn't going to jump on the show.
You could have done it, but then your wife would have literally murdered you on the air, which, albeit, would have provided some entertainment value. But we would miss you. We would miss you if you were.
I missed you guys. I was. Let's be honest. I was knee deep in Jose Cuervo, Drew.
That's
but,
true.
You mentioned the Wild game Tuesday night. Well, when was the Red Wings game? Exactly a week ago on a Tuesday night, right? Like, so this is like the third bad Tuesday night performance. And I think there were, that keeps throwing me off, Drew, because I feel like you're drinking wine right now, but it's obviously not wine. Oh, you are?
I'm drinking a bottle of wine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Continue.
Thank you. I'm going to keep
the amount of alcohol that I've put in my system since my early 20s, Drew. I can't criticize you having a little wine. It's a game.
I'm saving a glass. The dishwasher's a little bit on the fritz. We're getting it looked after, so I thought I'd save a glass. I got to finish the bottle tonight before it goes bad. So I thought I would just drink it right out of the bottle. I had to watch that hockey game. Did you watch that hockey game? You're lucky I'm
really,
not.
You did need alcohol. I was actually thinking about drinking some of that Fireball that our good friends at Seagram sent us. But look the Jets have given up 11 goals in those two games. I believe there was an empty netter against the Red Wings. So 10 goals still in those two losses to the Red Wings and the Habs. And those are both teams that are obviously not in a playoff spot and aren't expected to make a push into the playoffs.
Right.
And we were texting throughout the whole game like we often do, right? And we were saying like this Habs team, actually looks pretty good. Like Kirby Dach, it's crazy to believe that he's only 21 years old because we've been talking about him for probably 4 years now. But Kirby Dach is having a breakout season. We know that Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield, that's the future of the team, along with 2022 first overall pick Slavkovsky, who's not in the lineup. But, the Habs had 6 players on IR, and I made a note of it here. And I'm not going to obviously, pay a lot of attention to Carey Price because he hasn't been expected to play. But Paul Byron, Brendan Gallagher, Sean Monahan, Caden Gooley, Jake Evans, like those are all regular players in the lineup.
Yeah.
And if you had, Raphael Harvey Pinard playing his first NHL game tonight on your bingo card, then obviously, you win bingo tonight. But there were a few players out there that you're kind of saying like, who is this guy, right? But like you said, give the Habs credit, right? Like Evgeny Dadonov, I'm not joking, and you'll back me up here, Drew. I forgot Dadonov was on the Habs. Like, I think the Golden Knights still think Dadonov's on their team, but look at. Nobody really expected Dadonov to come close to scoring a hat trick tonight. But give the Habs credit. They played well.
He's had 2 goals all year entering tonight. He doubled his goal total tonight against the Winnipeg Jets. Look, this was just all sorts of ugliness from the Jets' perspective. And, I'm not going to say it's a harbinger of something worse that's on the horizon or anything like that. But there have been opportunities in games as of late where the Jets just haven't necessarily looked like themselves. And I would chalk this one up to one of those games. This is
Diet Coke, by the way, Drew. It's not Coors Light.
Is it Diet caffeine free? Did I see that?
I love the gold cans. That's what Naomi and I buy. I love the gold cans.
See those very often anymore.
We're basically Altacockers.
I was going to say, I don't think I've seen those since my grandparents passed away. But it's nice to see.
I will debate anybody that this is. I like the silver cans too. I'm not a fan.
You like Diet Coke?
We're a Diet Coke. The Ginsburgs are a Diet Coke family. Nothing against Pepsi. I have absolutely nothing. I'll drink Pepsi too. But love Diet Coke, but specifically the gold cans.
Yeah, that's the Diet caffeine-free Coke.
Yeah, they're obviously not any healthier than the silver cans. We just like the taste.
That's okay. You're more than entitled to like the taste of that. We all have our.
Have a sip of that wine, Drew.
We all have our predilections. Yours is Diet caffeine-free Diet Coke, and mine happens to be an entire bottle of red wine. No judgment.
Don't forget about the Xanax, Drew.
Yeah, exactly. Get that nice cocktail mixed up there. But look, this is a game that the Winnipeg Jets, I don't know if they took their opponent too lightly. That hasn't been their MO this year. Sometimes you just have an off night. And I'm more likely to think it was that as opposed to arrogance in taking your opponent lightly. Because the Montreal Canadiens, who aren't very good, but by and large, they play hard. They play hard for Martin St. Louis.
Yep.
They're lacking in talent, but what they make up for in talent, they often put out in effort. And sometimes that effort isn't good enough, and sometimes that effort doesn't overcome the lack of talent. But on a night like tonight, where Montreal is giving more of an effort and is the faster of the two teams, and the Jets look as just poor as they did, it's no wonder that Montreal...
disjointed. Like, you're absolutely right. And the craziest thing is, this is a scoreless game after one. Kyle Connor scores a beautiful goal, right? His 200th career goal. So most people watching this game thought, okay, the Jets are up 1-0. Connor just scored a nice goal. And then Connor follows that up by having a nice kind of, he goes from left to right, kind of through the slot area and hits the post. Mm-hmm. So Connor almost makes this game 2-0, right? And then I don't think the Habs come back from that. So I agree with you, Drew. Like, they had the lead. This is a team that is missing, as we talked about, Brendan Gallagher, Sean Monahan, Slavkovsky, who obviously I mean, you can make a strong argument that he probably shouldn't be in the NHL this year.
Right.
But I mean, that's a debate that I haven't watched him play enough, so I don't know if, what's best for Juraj Slafkovsky. But the point is, there wasn't a ton of skill on this Habs team. Like, all due respect to guys like Evgeny Dadonov and, Josh Anderson, and, we talked about Raphael Harvey-Pinard. Like, this Habs team, I mean, they're exactly where I think, most people thought they were going to be.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody thought, the Habs were going to be in a wild card spot at this point in the season. Marty St. Louis knows that. The Habs know that. This is a development year. And you look at the draft, and they're obviously going to be possibly in the Connor Bedard sweepstakes. They also have Florida's first round pick. Let's not forget about that, right? Mm-hmm. So the Habs in theory, could have 2 top 10 picks. And they're already adding to their stable of guys like Slafkovsky and Caden Gooley and et cetera, right? So, I mean, this Habs team, I think, is going to be able to turn it around pretty quickly. But you're absolutely right, Drew. Like, the Jets they looked sloppy at times. They were turning the puck over. They didn't have a lot of sustained offensive zone pressure until the third period. Right?
When the game was already out of hand at that point.
Exactly. So the push came when the score was 4-1 after Josh Anderson made it 4-1.
Right.
And even if you're the Montreal Canadiens, and especially the way Montembeault was playing well tonight.
Yeah.
And Montembeault, I was checking, he actually has a 9-10 save percentage. That's not bad for a guy who has been a career backup. Like, nobody's expecting Montembeault to be the future of the Habs crease, right? But give him credit. Mm-hmm. He made a nice save on Cole Perfetti on the 2-on-1. Yeah. Perfetti found Pionk. I thought Perfetti was one of the Jets' best players. Obviously, Kyle Connor, had a pretty strong game. I thought Nick Ehlers was really fighting it tonight. We'll talk about he blew a tire on, I believe that was the second Evgeny Dadonov goal, if I'm not mistaken. But, he just didn't have a very good game. And really, with the exception of 3 or 4 players, I mean, this just wasn't a good effort. And when you couple that with, the Coyotes game, which I'll admit, I didn't watch a lot of that Coyotes game, right. But, I caught a bit of the post-game show. Obviously, the Jets, that wasn't their A effort at home on Sunday. And then you look at the Detroit game, which wasn't very good. So 3 of their last 5 games have not been that great.
Yeah, I would say, you talk about the Coyotes game, I would say that, probably for the Jets have been outplayed for the last 4.5 periods of hockey that they've played, because I thought Arizona was the better of the 2 teams in the back half of the game on Sunday, and certainly Montreal was the better of the 2 teams tonight. So I don't think that this is cause for panic. The Jets weren't going to win their final 36 straight games or 37 straight games to end the year. That wasn't going to happen. They were going to have defeats. Obviously, you don't want a defeat against a weaker opponent, or it's a little bit more concerning, but it was inevitably going to happen. And tonight it did. And you hope that the Jets, from their perspective, channel what they saw tonight. They know that, they're not tuning in here and finding out that they played poorly. They very well know that they played poorly. You hope that they channel that and refocus and bring a better game on Thursday night against the Toronto Maple Leafs.
And they're going to have to.
You have to. Otherwise,
absolutely have to.
Yeah.
The Leafs are a contender in the East, and I know people are going to laugh at that. But look, they just beat Florida 5-4 in overtime.
They were down 4-1.
Exactly.
They came all the way back. They were getting, Florida had an early lead in that game, and the Leafs pulled Matt Murray, and Ilya Samsonov came in the game, and then the Leafs scored 4 unanswered goals.
He made an incredible pad save. I'm not sure who that was on. I just saw it on Twitter. He made just a save that, basically a Hellebuckian type of save where he's dancing out and makes this nice pad save. But like this Leafs team, I mean, I think there's a lot of similarities actually between the Leafs and the Bruins. I think, that could be a first round matchup, and I think the Bruins are deeper, but the Leafs are absolutely going to pose a really strong challenge. And the Jets, have had some success, over the years in Toronto. There's obviously going to be a lot of Jets fans in attendance at Scotiabank Air Canada Financial Center, whatever they're calling it these days. But this tonight was absolutely a game you have to flush. Like we've been doing post-game shows now, going back to TSN 1290, we've been doing them for 12 years, but the last couple of years here on this new format. And, sometimes you just have to say that game was so uncharacteristic, Drew, for the Jets. And I know people are going to say that the Jets were out partying and all that nonsense, but I mean,
if you look, unless you know that, don't speculate wildly. It's inconsiderate. It's rude. And it's just not appropriate. So I don't have time for that unless you know for fact that that was happening. And by the way, they're adults and they're entitled to do what they want. So don't start with that, folks.
Well,
Don't start with
you can
rumor and
also party
innuendo.
in almost any NHL city.
Of
No,
course
you can party it. You can party in Detroit. You can party,
Yeah.
in Vancouver.
Don't
There's a
start
lot
with
of
that.
there's a lot of nice cities, NHL cities, right? So
Yeah.
that was the joke. But I mean, regardless, I mean, they just didn't look anything similar, to the team that has been so successful over the last few weeks. And the thing that stood out to me is Connor Hellebuck's not at fault on any of these goals.
No,
Right? Like he's just absolutely hung out to dry.
Well, I tweeted
A lot of
about it
these goals, right? And Ville Heinola, I thought really struggled out there. I'm sure you'll want to get into that.
Yeah,
but Heinola had a rough game, and I was really excited for him to get back into the lineup. In Montreal to kick off a 5-game road trip. But he looked lost out there, Drew.
He did. He did not have a good game. Why don't we get into it, Ezzy? It's the Betway game recap brought to you by our friends at Betway, one of the most trusted voices in sports betting, both in Canada and all around the world. Betway is the sports betting app that puts you, the customer, at the forefront with a large selection of betting options in sports, as well as strong promotions and fair odds. What are you waiting for? Head on over to Betway and bet your way. Must be 19 years or older to play. Please play responsibly. No score in the first period, but it was a first period that by and large was controlled by the Montreal Canadiens as the best part of the first period. And some could say the best part of the Winnipeg Jets game in its entirety was the penalty kill. The penalty kill was very effective. Montreal with only one shot on goal in their 3 power play opportunities that they had in the course of the game. Now, the Habs don't have a good power play. As Dan Robertson alluded to on the broadcast, they haven't had a good power play in many a moon, but the Jets nonetheless did their job, particularly in that first period where both Dubois and Kuhlman took penalties, keeping the Habs off the board, keeping it at 0-0 after 20 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't a good period. They had a little bit of a push there in the later stages of the period, but Pierre-Luc Dubois had a good chance. That's the only one that I can really remember. It was a point blank chance. And as you mentioned, the penalty kill was really good. Like Adam Lowry stands out, like just making himself, big, even though he doesn't have to make himself look big. He was really good out there. I thought Saku Manalainen was really good. I thought you were going to say the best part of the first period was when they kept showing Morgan Barron and Justin Barron's parents, and the mom was wearing the Jets hat and the dad was wearing the Habs hat. And I was thinking when the Habs were up, they were going to switch, kind of do the rally cap thing. I'm sure I wasn't the only one there, but I mean, you got to love seeing that, right? Like you have to love, seeing parents, and not only do you have one kid playing, you have 2 kids playing. So that was pretty special. But yeah, there just was, at one point, I think the shots were 8-2, 9-2, something like that. There just wasn't a lot of sustained pressure. And then you couple that with, the fact that the Jets had to kill a couple penalties. They just never really, I thought, found their legs or found their game at all in the first period. But as we'll get into with Kyle Connor's 200th career goal, it looked like, okay, that's what you want to do. Like, that's for sure what they were talking about, right? Score a goal on the power play, follow that up with another goal, which they almost did. Connor hit the post. But after that, the Jets kind of just, there was that sag in their game, and you got the feeling that the Habs were going to tie this game up because they started to apply some pressure, and the Jets were just sloppy. They were turning the puck over. But certainly that first period was, again, I'm not surprised because we've talked about it all year long, Drew. The Jets have had so many games where they've had bad first periods, and this game was no different.
No, exactly right. Slow starts have been an MO of this team. Slow starts that get better as the game went on, and slow starts that by and large haven't bit the Jets in the behind. They've started slow and they haven't necessarily trailed in games. It's taken them in some games 5, 8, 10 minutes to get into the flow of things, but they haven't necessarily been trailing once they finally do get into the flow of things. And they didn't again tonight. It's not like they were down. They were in fact ahead 1-0. And it comes on the power play. It comes a minute 24 into the second period. The Jets started the second period with that 2-minute man advantage, and they.
By the way, sorry to cut you off, Drew. That's very rare that you have that much time at the end of the first period with a delayed penalty. Like, I don't know exactly what it was. It felt like it was close to a minute.
It was certainly, I mean, it was more than 30 seconds, I think, but because they were able to transition the puck all the way up the ice, and then they controlled it in the Habs zone and got off a couple of opportunities to score to eliminate the power play opportunity. They didn't, of course. It went into, but they did kill the entire remainder of the first period, allowing them to start the second period with that full 2-minute man advantage. And that man advantage to start the second period looked absolutely dominant. They had the puck on a string, and they were just controlling the entire play. And ultimately, it ends with Kyle Connor getting his 22nd of the season and his 200th career NHL goal. Congratulations to him. That's his 200th career goal in game number 429. So it's a great accomplishment for him. Assist to Morrissey and Ehlers, and it's just the Jets power play operating at its absolute peak here, as in that Morrissey finds Kyle Connor, and Connor just absolutely rifles it past Samuel Montembeault.
Yeah, it was almost a perfect pass, perfect shot, right? Like Montembeault, I think if you replayed that, or you attempted that 10 times, the Jets are probably scoring 9 out of those 10 times. So you're absolutely right. I mean, the Jets' first power play unit was dominant. And I liked how, Morrissey was kind of playing catch with Ehlers and Connor, because we know that Ehlers has a pretty good shot. No, not a pretty good shot. Yeah. He has a really good shot. And also does Morrissey, right? So and that's what's different. It's very different. And maybe, on the Saturday morning show, when we have some time, we'll break down kind of why the power play is so dangerous, in addition to the Jets having so much skill. But what I think it is that, it's like pick your poison in terms of who you really want to defend, what shot you want to defend.
Right.
Because right there, I mean, Ehlers, you have to worry about Ehlers. You have to worry about Morrissey. You have to worry about Connor. So I really like how the Jets kind of use that to their advantage. And yeah, it was just we've seen that how many times this year, where Morrissey just tees it up for Connor, and Montembeault doesn't have a chance with the type of shot Connor has.
He certainly didn't have a chance there, and it was 1-0 for the Winnipeg Jets. And then they got very close to making it 2-0, as you alluded to. And you wonder, if they score that 2-0 goal, how does the tenor of the game change? Kyle Connor on a shift shortly thereafter, after he scored to make it 1-0, he hits the post. And that's almost where the beginning of the end was for the Winnipeg Jets.
And he beat Montembeault clean. Like Montembeault wasn't like, he didn't react to that. Like that puck, if that puck is an inch to the left, that's it.
Yeah, no question about it.
I guess anytime you hit a post, you could say that. But
yeah, but it was a great shot, and he just happened to catch the post. But that's almost the beginning of the end for the Winnipeg Jets in tonight's game. After that, it was, not that they'd been in control, to that point, because they certainly hadn't been. Montreal had been the better of the two teams. But after Kyle Connor hits the post, the Jets really don't have much fight, and Montreal begins to take the game to them. They make it 1-1. It's Evgeny Dadonov, as you spoke about, or I guess he's now changed his pronunciation to, what was the pronunciation that Dan Robertson was using? Dadonov. I mean, whatever.
Gino? Yeah. I think some people called him Dadonov, and then at some point when he was in Florida, if I'm not mistaken, or Vegas, they started calling him Dadonov. Similar kind of to Dominic Toninato is now Tony Nato, right? So I guess you got to call him what he wants to be called, right?
Exactly. I'm going to call him Dadonov, because he said it was really up to whomever was talking. It's what Dan Robertson said on the broadcast. So Dadonov gets his third, assist to Justin Barron and Christian Dvorak. This was just a comedy of errors in the Winnipeg Jets zone, and this was not a good game for Ville Heinola. And we certainly saw it, and he won't like the replay of this one. It's a terrible giveaway. He just sort of panics. I don't know if it's just a lack of poise of a young player, just maybe thinking he didn't have as much time as he did. But it's really, the puck is on his stick. It's a great opportunity to clear the zone at the very least, if not, exit the zone cleanly. He does neither of the two. It's just a terrible giveaway. And ultimately, after a bit of a Keystone Cops routine by the Winnipeg Jets, Justin Barron with a great seam pass to Dadonov, who makes it 1-1, Dadonov's third of the year, as he.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Drew, 10, 15 seconds before Heinola has the opportunity to clear and, gives it away to Dadonov, Hellebuyck actually makes a really nice save.
He made a number of great saves before the goal went in. Yeah.
Right. And I thought Hellebuyck was solid tonight. I mean, in a 4-1 loss, it's tough to say that he was solid. But then the Jets were just kind of running around, right? Like Heinola's out of position, Brendan Dillon's out of position, Saku Manalainen, and he doesn't cover Dadonov well when, as you mentioned, Barron gives him the pass to the left of Hellebuyck. So, I mean, it just starts with a bad turnover, and then the Jets can't clear, and they're kind of running around scrambling. And, that's an issue. And that's something that's been uncharacteristic about this Jets team over the last 4 or 5 games. Like we talked about it. The Detroit game was arguably their worst defensive game of the season. And this game wasn't much better. Like the Habs could have had 5 or 6 goals in this game easy.
If it wasn't for Connor Hellebuyck, you're right.
And that's an issue when you're playing a Habs team that, we talked about it again. They're missing a bunch of key players like Gallagher and Monahan, and we know the names. Slavkovsky wasn't in there. So I'm not sure, what this was, if this was just, the Jets having a one-off bad game. But yeah, certainly, look at Ville Heinola is a guy, I think he's had, it's been a tough year for him in the sense that, he's been recalled, then sent back to the Moose, then recalled, then back to the Moose, right? So he's playing and then he's not playing. He's playing for the Moose and then he's a healthy scratch. But I think that, I don't think anybody watching this game thinks that, he's going to play against the Leafs. I'd be shocked. I think Dylan Sandberg goes in 100%.
I would be surprised if he was to play again, but I mean, this is a case where.
By the way, we're just saying for the near future. I'm not saying that Heinola is going to play the rest of the season for the Moose. I'm just saying based on the way he played tonight.
It was a bad game.
I like Heinola. Heinola. I'm a fan of Heinola's game. I wish the best for him, but tonight he clearly was struggling, not just on that goal, but on 3 of the goals.
You're right. Exactly right. It was a bad game for him. And it's something that he's obviously going to use as a learning opportunity because he's going to try and bounce back. But it's a case of where his waiver exempt status is really maybe setting him back in that he can't sort of get any consistency. A couple games he's playing with the Jets, then he's playing with the Moose, then he's playing with the Jets. And it's sort of hard to grow into the role when you're not really playing in a consistent manner. And that's just a function of the fact that he is waiver exempt. So the Jets can use that to their advantage and move him up and back as needed, which is what you've seen as of late, especially with the Jets and going through the flu situation that they were going through last week. Ezzy, let's do it for Dark Moon because he's getting a little bit stressed, I think, about it. So on 3, 1, 2, 3.
You got to smile though. Smile and wave.
Smiling and waving for Dark Moon.
We have to queue up though, Drew. The Headstones. You remember the Headstones? A good grunge,
Smile and
grunge
wave.
band from. We have to queue up Smile and Wave every time we do that. The only problem is I think there's copyright issues.
There is. You can't do that on YouTube.
I'll talk to that guy from the Headstones who remember he was in like a Canadian cop series as well.
No. I did not know that, but if somebody wants to make their own version of that song,
do we have Spency here? Spency's in the chat. Somebody could easily Google this. I could probably Google. I have a computer in front of me.
You're doing something.
The lead singer of the Headstones was in a Canadian TV cop drama. Okay. I just don't know what it's called. And the Headstones were a great band. There was a song I can't remember. There was like hash or weed in it or something. But anyways, not saying that I'm doing that right now or ever have. But Headstones, great Canadian band.
There you go. There's Ezzy's musical interlude on this Tuesday evening edition of the Illegal Curve post-game show. We're live on YouTube. We're live on all of our social media platforms. 1-1 at this point in the second period. Montreal takes the lead. It's the game-winning goal. It comes at the 9:28 mark. It's Mike Hoffman, his 8th of the season, assist to Kirby Dach and Justin Barron. Brendan Dillon steps up to deliver a hit on Kirby Dach. Dach takes the hit to make the play. Hoffman comes in. Heinola looks like he's playing it as if it's a 2-on-1, except for that it's a 1-on-1. He doesn't really impact the shot. You don't really love Mark Scheifele's back check on this play either. If you look at the replay, and Mike Hoffman, he's not the player he once was. He's more of a journeyman now. But if there's one asset that he has, it's a fantastic shot. That's what he's always had, is just an absolutely fantastic shot. And he rips this one past Connor Hellebuyck to make it 2-1. And again, it's just a poor defensive play by the Winnipeg Jets, and it ends up behind Connor Hellebuyck. And as it happens, it's the game-winning goal at this point in time, Ezzy.
Yeah, nice goal, but nice shot by Hoffman. Just keep him away from Erik Karlsson. That's not too soon to say that. That was a long time ago. Obviously, that was a dark moment in the Ottawa Senators, time with Hoffman and Karlsson there. But you're absolutely right. Heinola needed to take the shooter there, and he doesn't. As you mentioned, he thought he was defending the 2-on-1 in the proper way, but he just doesn't do the right. He doesn't make the right decision there. Yeah, and Hoffman just skates right in. He just skates right in. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of bizarre. Like, I can understand why he thought it might have been a 2-on-1, but you have to have the awareness to know that it wasn't a 2-on-1 and you're the last defenseman back. And, you essentially what happened is Hoffman just walked in, untouched and just risked a beautiful shot. And as you mentioned, Drew, that is Mike Hoffman's bread and butter. Like, Mike Hoffman is not a defensive forward. Like, Hoffman's a goal scorer, and obviously he's towards the end of his career. So, I'm not sure what his career best was. I want to say he was close to 40. He definitely got 30 a few times, but he's not going to be hitting 30 goals this year. That's for sure. But what was that? His 8th goal. So good for him. Like, these guys like Evgeny Dadonov and Mike Hoffman, look at these guys are still NHL players and they have pride. Like you talk about.
Hoffman's been healthy scratched a few times this year, but it's
there you go.
But I mean, he still got that NHL shot. I mean, the Habs don't need Mike Hoffman. He's
You'd be surprised, Drew, if someone picked up Hoffman at the trade deadline. You wouldn't have to give up much to get him.
You wouldn't have to get much, and you got a shooter, you get a goal scorer. He's one-dimensional, but if you need a goal scorer, somebody that could, maybe step in and not necessarily play a big role on your team, but as a depth scorer, you could do a lot worse than Mike Hoffman, or on the second power play unit. If you need a little juice on a second power play unit, he could do a lot worse.
By the way, just watching the replay, good call on your part about Kirby Dach, because Kirby Dach, as we know, is a big boy. So is Brendan Dillon. But that's for a 21-year-old going up against a much older veteran defenseman. Good for Kirby Dach. Like, that was a beauty pass. And we talked about it. Like, the Habs elevated their game. You don't think that the Habs were, preparing for this game knowing they were going up against a hot Jets team? Sure. Like, there's no surprises anymore. Everybody knows that where the Jets are in the standings, currently tied for first in the Central, right? So give them credit. And you're right. I mean, after that goal by Hoffman, there just wasn't that pushback that you were expecting from the Jets. Sure, they had a few chances, but really it wasn't until the third period when they really started to pile it on. So again, Heinola gets burned again, second goal in a row in this game. And again, he has to learn from this. And, you make jokes, not you, people make jokes about the iPads and everything like that. And obviously, Heinola is not going to watch these goals on an iPad, but you better believe the coaching staff is going to be kind of going over this type of stuff. They're not going to be degrading about it, and they're not going to be demeaning about it. No. But, Heinola is a young defenseman who's got to learn from these mistakes.
The video review tomorrow will be ugly for a lot of players. It won't just be ugly for Ville Heinola. It will be ugly for him. But there's no shortage of guys who really no-showed tonight in Montreal for whatever reason. So it's going to be an ugly video review as the team prepares to face the Toronto Maple Leafs on Thursday. A much looked a game that everyone circles on their calendars. Always a fun time when Toronto comes to Winnipeg, and just the same when Winnipeg goes to Toronto. Usually a fun time. 2-1 at this point in time. The Habs make it 3-1 at the 13:31 mark of the second period. So if you're keeping track, that is that's 3 goals for the Montreal Canadiens in 5 minutes and 45 seconds. So it didn't take them long to really blow open the game. It's Dadonov again, his 4th assist to Christian Dvorak and David Savard. And it's just sort of a weird play, but also a bit of a soft play. Dylan DeMello is trying to clear the puck, and he's trying to ring it around the boards, and it takes a weird bounce. But if you can see, the Jets players are already flying the zone. They're already
Ehlers. It's funny you mentioned fly, because Ehlers, they call him fly in the dressing room, right? But and I get why he flew the zone, but then he falls down, right? So he slips, and then he's out of the play, right? So it's kind of like a double whammy. Now you're in an odd man situation, but you're right. The Jets had control of the puck, and it's an unfortunate bounce. Like, I'm going to give Dylan DeMello a pass on that one. It was kind of weird. Like, I don't know if it was off the glass. It looked like it was off the boards.
Just hit the sideboards and almost like there was no. If they hit the sideboard and just almost died. Like, there was no. Usually the pucks will slide pretty decent. They just sort of like almost like a balloon deflating, where it just sort of stops in midair and just collapses to the ground. Really odd bounce. But the Jets have had a few odd bounces in Montreal over the years. You remember that game that Connor held where the Jets got lit up. Maybe was it 7-1 or something in Montreal a couple years ago. I can't exactly remember what the final score was, where it was a weird bounce off the glass and into the net, or off the end boards and into the net, whatever it was.
I remember the Jets getting swept. That's for sure.
Yeah, that was in the playoffs. This one wasn't in the playoffs that I'm referring to, but yeah, for sure, that was the case. Anyways, the puck takes a weird bounce. Connor Hellebuyck makes the first save.
Yep.
And Ville Heinola sort of caught in no man's land. He takes air, which is never a good thing to take. Usually you want to take at least another player. but the Connor Hellebuyck makes the great save off of the Christian Dvorak shot, but it just goes right to Evgeny Dadonov, and he's got a wide open net. Nobody is accosting him. He has enough time to make a sandwich. He can do whatever he wants, at that point in time, and it's 3-1 for the Habs, just before the 14-minute mark.
Obviously, Dadonov would be eating an illegal curve sandwich, not just any old sandwich.
No, of course
he'd be having that chicken schnitzel and salami.
That's right.
With,
he'd order
fried
it
onions
in
and mustard on thick cut city rye bread, right?
It's a good sandwich.
But look, Ville Heinola again here. Like we talked about, the bad bounce. Ehlers, he falls down close to center ice.
Yeah.
But again, Heinola goes to take Dadonov. But then, as you mentioned, Christian Dvorak comes in, and then he switches and he goes to Dvorak.
Yeah.
But then he leaves Dadonov to the left of Hellebuyck, right? So again, like I hate that we have to keep mentioning Heinola's mistakes on these first 3 Montreal goals.
They were legitimate,
but it's true. Like he didn't play it well. He didn't play the Mike Hoffman shot well.
Yeah.
He didn't play this shot well. You just can't do that when you go to cover Dadonov, and then Dvorak is the trailer and he comes in. And then you go to Dvorak. Well, that leaves, and it's not his fault completely. We talked about it. There were several, mistakes on this one. But again, these were all self-inflicted.
There's no support from the forwards or anything on this play. Yeah, because
there's nothing. There's nothing. He had time and space, as you mentioned.
Yeah,
and it just wasn't a well played. Wasn't played properly in the Jet zone. And again, that was the insurance goal that they needed. And I knew that, Jets fans were giving up on the Jets coming back in this game when I literally started to see, Jets fans suggesting, that the Jets should go after Justin Barron, and the Jets should go after Joel Edmondson, and the Jets should go after Josh Anderson, and the Jets should go, it kind of got ridiculous where it's like, okay, I don't think the Jets are going to acquire, half of the Habs roster, but I mean, certainly I wouldn't be shocked if the Joel Edmondson, I was going to mention this, Drew, is a guy, I don't know, if the Jets have interest, but, as a kind of a 7th defenseman, we saw how good Edmondson was a couple years back. We mentioned the sweep. So Edmondson, was obviously from Western Manitoba.
Yeah.
So I'm just, and you wouldn't have to give up a lot to get him. I mean, I'm on the Sean Monahan bandwagon. He's injured right now.
Yeah.
So I would be in favor of, if the Jets made a move like that, but just thought Joel Edmondson would kind of be a good kind of depth acquisition for the Jets if they're interested.
Well, trade deadline coming up in about another 6 or so weeks away. So we'll obviously keep an eye on all that and all the rumors, which are going to only get hotter and fly faster between now and that day. The Habs round out the scoring at the 4:19 mark of the third period. The Jets pushed to start the third. They had a couple of opportunities, but it didn't go their way. And then Josh Anderson, nobody picks him up. He's the trailer on the play. Kirby Dach with the wraparound attempt, and it just pops right back out to Josh Anderson, who's late into the play. Nobody touches him. Nobody accounts for him. And he has another wide open net to shoot off. And he makes it 4-1 for the Montreal Canadiens. And that's how tonight's contest ended. A disappointing result for the Winnipeg Jets, but a well-earned result for the Montreal Canadiens. They'll be happy with their effort. They'll be happy taking the 2 points and leaving the Winnipeg Jets scratching their brow and furrowing their brow.
I like the color of that shirt, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, it's sort of a aquamarine.
Yeah, I would. If it was aquamarine or turquoise.
Yeah, it's an aquamarine. It's a turquoise, somewhere around there. Yeah,
like that.
It's a nice shirt.
It's not a color you see very often.
Well, I like to wear sort of bold colors every now and then.
Yeah, you're a bold guy.
I'm a bold guy when it comes to clothing. My shoes, I'm a big Converse head, and so my Converse are usually quite noticeable.
And you have 30 pairs of Air Jordans. You get a new pair of Air Jordans every year or two.
They actually send them to me. I'm an influencer. I don't know if you knew that, but I'm a shoe influencer under my pseudonym on Instagram. But I don't tell people that. It's like
Kim Kardashian, and then Taylor Swift, and then Drew Bendel right behind those two.
You should see what I wear to the Met Gala. It has all the tongues wagging. It's not just what Kim wears to the Met Gala, it's what I wear to the Met Gala as well. I think the Met Gala may have been a better place to be tonight rather than watching the Winnipeg Jets. They lose 4-1 to the Montreal Canadiens. This has been the Betway game recap, brought to you, of course, by Betway. It's simple, fun, and safe to bet with Betway, so head on over to Betway and bet your way. Must be 19 years or older to play. Please play responsibly. I'm not a sneakerhead, Matthew.
But Drew has good. I gotta give him credit.
But I'm a Converse head.
He's got good. he gets nice shoes. Like he doesn't, Richie used to have, you remember Richie was a guy who, you look at his closet, he's literally got, I'm not joking, like 50 pairs of shoes, some of which he didn't even take out of the box. So Drew isn't a sneakerhead,
guy who's got
but
too much money right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But Drew does have a nice shoe collection. You usually see,
Converse.
like, as opposed to me, I have holes in my shoes.
Yeah.
And I've been wearing them for 4 or 5 years.
You're literally wearing sandwich bags.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sandwich bags. But to me, it's Converse. I don't know what triggered in me to become a bit of a Converse.
Well, Chuck Taylors are. I mean, you don't get more classic than that.
Well, that's what I have. I have the high tops. I have the low tops. I like to mix it up, which is sort of
nobody's ever going to see you wearing Chuck Taylors and criticize them, right?
Like, I hope not.
It's one of those kind of universal shoes that everybody seems to like.
If you like Chuck Taylors that are bold in color, then I am the man for you. I might not be the man for you when it comes to my hockey analysis or any of the other things that.
Well, I was going to say, I hope you're just the man for Laura, because she might be listening. But I was going to ask you, did you ever have a pair of Doc Martens back in the day?
Sure.
Remember how popular those were when we were in junior high school? Everybody had to have Doc Martens.
I think they're back to being popular. At least maybe a couple of years ago, they were back to being in style. I had a pair of. I didn't have the big sort of like the big tall Doc Martens.
You're right. Those
were a little too intimidating.
I didn't have any Doc Martens. My dad was not having any of that because they were expensive.
Yeah, no, I had a pair of Doc Martens. The tall boots don't work well for me. I'm not the tallest person in stature. Tall in personality, big in personality, not in actual inches and feet. So instead of wearing the tall Doc Martens, that would look a little odd for me. I did definitely have a pair of Docs.
I used to like, we're down the rabbit hole here. So I was always a big fan of, when we were in junior high school or high school, the Asics. I think it was Asics.
Asics, I think.
But I remember I always used to, you remember where my dad used to take my sister Gillian and I was Bata at Polo Park. Do you remember Bata?
I mean,
shout out for Bata if anybody's in the chat remembers Bata or Randy River at the Polo Park Mall. But that's where my dad used to take us, when we were younger for shoes. And I always used to like getting Asics.
Look, this is Jay Miller's going to pass a test one day. Jay Miller, this is very wise of you. We were talking about my stature, and he referenced the fact from however many shows ago that my dad used to holler at me when I was on the ice playing house league hockey to play like I was 6'4", 6'4". So good on you, Jay Miller. You've passed the test here on the Illegal Curve post.
I also know a Jay Miller, went to Kelvin High School with me. So, we have a Jay Miller who's not that Jay Miller, I don't think. He sells cars. And then there's also an Eric Horlofson who, as you know, was one of the best 9-ball pool players. He is the best 9-ball pool player. I think he just won the national championship. But there's another Eric Horlofson who spells his name with a C. So it's kind of weird that there's two guys with the exact same names, and they're not exactly common. I guess Jay Miller is a little bit more common. But anyways, good memory, Jay, there.
Yes, there you go. Good job on all of you people in the chat tonight as we're here discussing the Winnipeg Jets defeat at the hands of the Montreal Canadiens by a 4-1 margin. We'll go to break. When we come back, we'll do the Illegal Curve merchandise contest. We'll do the Tough Duck hardest hitting comment contest, as he's going to pick that out for us. We'll talk about some of the post-game comments from the Jets dressing room and the news of the night that's circulating regarding Ivan Provorov, a person who allegedly was on the trade block. Not sure that he's going to be I'm not sure that he's going to be so sought after what happened earlier tonight in Philadelphia. Stay tuned. It's the Illegal Curve post-game show. We're live on YouTube and all of our social media platforms.
Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the biggest acts and all the up-and-comers. They've all made their mark at Rumors Comedy Club, North America's longest-running independent comedy club. Rumors has kept Winnipeg laughing for over 25 years. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends or book your office or birthday party, even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
He winds up. Oh, looks like Ezzy took that one right in the choppers.
A blistering fast puck hurts like HE double hockey sticks. That's why I let the pros at Linden Market Dental Center turn my yow into
wow.
Get your brilliant smile back with state-of-the-art restorative and cosmetic dentistry from real pros.
And remember, always wear a mouth guard.
Now that's solid on ice advice. Learn more at lindenmarketdentalcenter.com. Creating smiles for life.
Whoa, Ezzy, everything okay? You look stressed.
Of course I'm stressed. We're moving, the house is upside down, the kids failed miserably at packing the fine china, and my life is in chaos. Chaos.
Yes, that does sound like a problem.
What am I going to do?
Ezzy, relax. Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage is the answer. With 60 years of experience in moving Manitobans and a track record of exemplary customer service, one call to Rolly's and your stress is gone. No job is too big or too small. Just visit Rollies.com and they will take it from there.
Thanks, Dave, and thank you, Rollies Transfer Moving and Storage, online at Rollies.com.
Dave, my man, why are you in the car already? It's hours until game time.
Drew, it's because I'm stressed out right now, driving around downtown Winnipeg, looking for a parking spot, and I'm not finding one. I've lost Ginsburg. I don't even know where that guy is right now.
Dave, haven't I taught you anything? Do what I do. Pre-book your entire month's worth of game day parking with the Grid Park app. It's super easy to use and saves me both time and stress.
Well, Drew, I'm not independently wealthy like you are. So I'm sorry that I don't have millions of dollars to pre-book my parking month in advance. What's that going to cost you? $25?
How about $5?
Come on, $5? No way.
$5. I'm not telling you a lie. And our listeners can get a free park with the new special promo code Illegal Curve. Guess what? There's more.
Come on, there's more, Drew. You're lying to me. What more could there be?
Grid Park now has underground parking, so my car can stay warm during the game.
So wait a second. All the driving around I do, looking for parking, minus 40, you're telling me I could be toasty warm in a car after the hockey game?
That's exactly what I'm telling you. Underground parking. Just download the Grid Park app. That's GRYD Park and use the code Illegal Curve. All one word. You'll park for free your first time. Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com. For 3 generations and over 80 years, Tough Duck has been making apparel that works and plays as hard as the people who wear it. From jackets to work boots and everything in between, Tough Duck's clothing can handle the harshest environments, even the Illegal Curve hockey show. Work to live, live to play. Visit toughduck.com. Bottom of the hour. Welcome back to the Illegal Curve post-game show. Drew Mandel, Ezra Ginsburg with you on this Tuesday night. We'll be back at it on Thursday night when the Jets head to Toronto to face the Toronto Maple Leafs post-game right around 8:45 or so, give or take a couple minutes. Similar start time to tonight's post-game show. Some comments from the Winnipeg Jets dressing room. These are courtesy of Murat Atesh of The Athletic, who's on the road trip tonight. Quote from Kyle Connor: "We looked slow tonight." Both Kyle Connor and Josh Morrissey spoke about the Jets being slow and executing poorly, said it wasn't about the game plan. Well, that's good. I'm glad the game plan wasn't about being slow and executing poorly, but it was about the Jets had disjointed play and too much space for the opposition in the middle of the ice. So I would agree with everything that Kyle Connor said. They did look slow tonight, and it's been a couple games in a row, I thought, since maybe the halfway point of Sunday's game against the Coyotes, that they've looked slow. So, and if they look slow against the Toronto Maple Leafs on Thursday, that'll be a significant problem, because the Maple Leafs, well, they certainly don't look slow. They look like a bit of a firepower juggernaut, certainly in the regular season, as they have been for the last number of years. Playoff time is a separate kettle of gefilte altogether, and time will tell on that front. But the Jets need to find their A game prior to heading to Toronto on Thursday night, Ezzy.
Yeah, absolutely. And, even though the Leafs are most likely, going to have a tough first round matchup, we talked about it. I mean, look at tonight, they're down 3 goals and they come back. The Leafs are one of those teams. I mean, the Jets can do that as well. And I mean, the Leafs definitely, have some holes in the roster. Let's just put it that way. That defense, I think it's held up nicely. Mm-hmm. But, I have serious concerns, for example, if they play Boston or if they play Tampa Bay in the first round, which can happen because they're in such a good division, right? So we don't know, who they're going to face, but the Leafs are a much better team, at least on paper, than the Montreal Canadiens are. Yeah, so they're going to have to be much better, and they know that. And, they're going to have to get this going, the right way, because even though, we talked about this like on the Saturday show, this was before the Coyotes game, obviously, but I mentioned, with the 9 games left, you only have a couple of games against teams that are currently in a playoff spot. And I absolutely think the Jets, can win. Obviously, they're 0-1, or pardon me, 1-1 if you count the Coyotes game, but there's a lot of winnable games here, right? Like you get Ottawa, you get Philadelphia, as you mentioned, who isn't going to have Ivan Provorov, arguably their most talented defenseman, right?
Well, no, they'll still have him.
Oh, I thought he was injured. Okay.
No, he wasn't injured. He just we'll touch on it briefly.
Sure.
We don't have to go in deep in it. We'll touch on it.
I do think
after.
Provorov makes a lot of sense for the Jets.
Wow.
Again, it goes back to what we were talking about, on the Saturday show with Sean Shapiro. What's the price going to be? Like, what are you going to have to give up for Ivan Provorov?
So let me talk about what I don't know if you've seen it yet on Twitter tonight.
I haven't. No.
Provorov did not take the pregame skate for the Philadelphia Flyers tonight. And sometimes players don't take the pregame skate due to injury, or they're getting additional treatment or something. He declined to take the pregame skate because the Philadelphia Flyers were wearing Pride jerseys. So that's why he chose to not take the pregame skate, because it is not in line with, and this is his words.
Well, that's ridiculous.
These are his words.
That's cool at all.
Well, no, I don't think so either, and I don't want to get into it because it's just not worth getting into. Everybody, you can do what you want to do or say what you want to say, but this is the quote from Ivan Provorov: "I respect everybody and I respect everybody's choices. My choice is to stay true to myself and my religion. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to comment on that." So that's why Ivan Provorov didn't take the pregame skate, because the Flyers were wearing Pride jerseys.
Well, if you accept people for who they are, though, you would wear the jersey.
Well,
sorry, that's bullshit.
I agree with you fully. And the Flyers chose to play him in the game, even though he chose not to play to take the pregame skate. So anyways, that'll be a topic of conversation for people to discuss over the next 24 hours, certainly. But that's what's happening in Philadelphia.
Pardon my language, by the way. I know this is a family program.
Yes, but the only reason why we're bringing that up, by and large, is because Provorov was a guy whose name had been bandied about, and there had been some.
It's not going to help him, Drew. When other teams see that type of stuff, I'm sorry, he's not helping his cause by doing stuff like that.
And he wants to go, and he wants to get out of Philadelphia. That's why you talk about helping his cause, because he's been pretty vocal about not wanting to be in Philadelphia much longer. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of this, if anything. A little bit more from Kyle Connor and Josh Morrissey. Quote, this is Kyle Connor: "We weren't close together, supporting each other. A couple guys on different pages. It's never going to work out well. Josh Morrissey on the Jets giving up too much ice. Quote, "We've had nights like this here in the past where it seems like we're on our heels. The crowd is obviously fantastic, and you can't let that influence, making it feel like they're all over you or that you need to start sitting back." So Josh Morrissey is sort of saying that maybe the Jets were, I don't want to use the word intimidated, but maybe the stage in Montreal was a little bright for them tonight, and that affected how they were playing in tonight's game, which is surprising, but again, it happens. Bad games happen. I don't think it's anything worth.
That's what this is, guys. Like, sorry, I'm not. I know it's just the two of us, but I meant people watching, like guys and gals. Like, this was a bad game. Like the whole idea that we talked about it. Like they went out late last night, or they couldn't handle the pressure. I mean, for the most part, with the exception of a few young players like Heinola and Perfetti, who've already played in enough NHL arenas, I don't think they get intimidated by whether it's the Bell Center or if they're playing in Vegas or Dallas or anything like that. So sometimes you have to just say that this was a terrible game, and the Coyotes game as well. And I mentioned this, I didn't watch it, so I'm not going to pretend like I watched the whole game and I really know what happened, but I know they weren't really good. So again, it goes back to the Jets are in a great position right now, tied with Dallas for first in the Central, but season's not over. They don't give you the Stanley Cup after 43 or 44 games. So you got a tough test against Toronto, and then you've got a back-to-back against Ottawa and Philly. And yes, Ottawa and Philly, they're not playoff teams, but neither is Montreal. And look what happened tonight. So, you got to start putting some wins together again.
Well, you got to start. I mean, you hopefully, from the Jets' perspective, is you use tonight's loss as motivation and a reminder of how you have to play to be effective. Speaking of which, here's Rick Bowness. Quote, "We weren't skating. Our legs weren't going. Our compete wasn't good. Our execution was way off. There's very few games that we're going to walk out of a rink and say we didn't deserve to win, but that's certainly one tonight. Furthermore, quote, we didn't deserve to win that game. We were behind all night and made it very easy for them to play their game. When the compete isn't there and the legs aren't there and the execution isn't there, then you look bad. We looked bad. So exactly what the Jets were.
And again, we've talked about this so many times before. You know, the best teams in the NHL lose games to teams that they should beat. But you mentioned, you know, I thought it was a good point that you made. You know, you go back to December, early December, mid-December, the Jets were not good against the Capitals. And the Capitals are I think they're going to maintain their playoff spot. I think, especially now getting Tommy Wilson and Nicholas Backstrom back, I think, and Darcy Kemper, I'm not sure what his status is, but I mean, I think the Capitals will be a team, so give them credit. But, you know, there was a couple bad performances against the Capitals. We talked about the game on the 27th and the 28th against the Wild, the game last week against Detroit. Like, there are signs here, guys. And that's why you have to, you know, pump the brakes a little bit. Like, the Jets are going to be a playoff team. There's no doubt about that. But, you know, are they going to maintain and stay, you know, first or second in the Central? Because you've got the Wild pushing, you've got the Avalanche pushing, right? Like, you've got Valerina Chushkin back, Nathan McKinnon's back. They're going to get Josh Manson back eventually and possibly, you know, make a big move if, you know, what we're reading, you know, it could be a Bo Horvat or somebody like that, right? So, I mean, the Jets, they're comfortably in a playoff spot, but depending on what happens on this road trip, I mean, you definitely want to win at least 3 of these 4 games here. You don't want to go back to Winnipeg having lost 3 of 5 games on the road because the schedule will eventually,
opponents.
Exactly, the schedule will eventually get harder.
Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. Tough Duck, hardest hitting comment, Ezzy, for this Tuesday evening. Who is your recipient of the toque from our friends at Tough Duck?
Yeah, we're going to give it to Drywall Man. I sent it to you there in the private chat. Drywall Man, we see him often. Hopefully, as Drew takes another swig of his, I don't know what that is, if that's,
it's a Tempranillo.
Cabernet, so I have no idea. Tempranillo?
Tempranillo is the type of wine.
Yeah. I as you know, I'm not a wine guy.
Not a big wine guy.
I'm more of a, you know, an IPA, sour IPA guy.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's delicious.
It's quite tasty.
Is that from Kentucky?
No, it's from Winnipeg. It's from a wine store here in Winnipeg.
Okay.
Yeah. It's quite lovely. I enjoy it.
We're going to give it to Drywall Man. His comment.
Congratulations, Drywall Man.
Yeah, congratulations. I might need some drywall work, so I might be hitting you up. Rick Bonus talks about changing culture. I like this comment, this part of the comment. We'll start by getting these players of his to start playing teams like Montreal hard. And I mean, we saw, you know, a fight at the end of the game, but for the most part, I mean, this was, you know, just overall a poor effort defensively, offensively. Like we talked about it, aside from Kyle Connor, I really like Cole Perfetti's game. I thought Neil Pionk had a really strong game. Obviously, you know, Morgan Barron had a strong game with his parents in the crowd. But aside from 3, 4, 5 players, I mean, there weren't a lot of players that, you know, this wasn't a very good game for Scheifele. We talked about Ville Heinola struggled. So there's no doubt that, you know, the Jets have had a couple of bad performances in a row against some pretty bad teams. So Drywall Man, send me an email, Ezra@illegalcurve.com, EZRA, or if you're American, EZRA@illegalcurve.com. I always get that in when my kids are doing the alphabet. I say at the end, they say Z, but Z in Canada.
Well, my kids love the ability because they have both American and Canadian citizenship.
Absolutely.
So they love they love the fact that they can get away with either saying Z or Z. They enjoy that that perk of the dual citizenship. That
I don't know how many other countries, by the way, use like what the breakdown is. Like I'm assuming in Britain,
it's Z.
It's Z, but I don't know how many countries use Z. I'm not sure. You know, I'll have to, you know, take a language course or something like that. But I always found it interesting that the US
are there any linguistic profs?
Yeah, where are the linguists?
In our chat?
Yeah. I love the English language, so I would love
you are. I forget it. That's you know what I was going to say, also, don't you?
Don't worry, Drew. You're the real loquacious one. Love that word.
You know, I was going to say you're a cunning linguist, and I guess I just did. So I mean, we'll maybe leave it there on that topic for the time being.
So Drywall Man, just send me your mailing address.
Yeah.
To Ezra@illegalcurve.com, or you can find me at ICSEG. I'm not sure if Drywall Man is here. If Drywall Man is not here, if somebody could let him know that he won.
Spencer and I are making the same jokes now, which is a real problem. Something's got to give.
I told you it's not Spencer. Spencer is his real name, but it's Spency.
I know. Okay. Well, if we're all making the same jokes, then they clearly that this ship has gone too far, and we need to maybe change things around.
I didn't see the comment, but I'm going to
It's
look
okay.
for it.
Doesn't matter. It's not important.
I'm assuming you're not putting that one up, Drew, because just based on how you reacted to that, I feel like
it's the same comment. It's the same joke I made. It's the same comment
okay.
I made. He's just making it back. So this is showing that we're all on the same wavelength. You know, you spend too much time with the same people, you begin to think like the same people, and this is what's happening.
Shout out to Stonewall Dave, by the way. Good folks in Stonewall.
Yeah, there you go. For some reason, they're talking about the littlest hobo. I missed that conversation, but the chat is sometimes
our boy Sean Coe, head pro at Toulon. He lives in Stonewall.
There you go. It sometimes the chat is off doing its own thing, which we always appreciate. The unique code word for the Illegal Curve contest for tonight. So again, to enter the Illegal Curve contest, you go to the drop down arrow on the show description here on the YouTube page. You'll see the link to the contest page. You click the link. There's a whole list of things you need to do that you can earn entries into the Illegal Curve merchandise contest. One of them being, of course, entering the unique code word that you can only get here on the Illegal Curve YouTube channel or afterwards on the podcast. And when you enter that unique code word, you get bonus entries and opportunity to win great Jets merchandise, opportunity to win tickets at the end of the month to an NHL game of your choosing. The unique code word for the Illegal Curve contest, even though he's not here tonight, Dave M still picked it. The unique code word is Grimsby, Ontario. All one word.
Couldn't Dave have just gone with Grimsby?
Could have, but Dave didn't, and can't explain the brain of Dave. That's
Johnny Kovacevic's
hometown,
birthplace.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're wondering why it's Grimsby, Ontario, it has to do with Johnny Kovacevic, of course, playing for the Montreal Canadiens, formerly of the Manitoba Moose. And Johnny and Dave had a very special relationship, obviously.
Great to see him playing regular NHL games, by the way. I thought he looked good out there. It's unfortunate that he was claimed by the Canadiens from a Jets fan's perspective.
Yeah,
but Kovacevic, I know, was a very good for him. He most likely wouldn't have played as much, even though there were injuries, right? Like we know, Nate Schmidt, Logan Stanley. So there would have been an opportunity possibly, but
not as significant as the one he's having.
He's playing in the Habs top 6, so good for him. He's a good guy.
Right. So the unique code word for today is Grimsby, Ontario. Enter that, get extra bonus entries into the Illegal Curve merchandise contest, and do all the other tasks that are on that page. And if you can't find it in the YouTube channel in the show description, just go to illegalcurve.com. You can find it there. Click the link. Enter Grimsby, Ontario, and you can get bonus entries. And you can be like today's contest winner, Glenn Ryland. Congratulations to Glenn. You are the winner. Name. Yeah, familiar name. We see him in the chat, I believe, on a relatively frequent basis. I think he's also on our Twitter feed fairly often as well. So a hearty mazel tov, as we like to say.
We also have a fan from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, by the way, Drew. Patrick S.
Oh, okay. Congratulations. Oh, hello. Thank you, Patrick S. Hey, nice to you to join us from the Pennsylvania area. We do this after each and every Winnipeg Jets game and again on Saturday mornings with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. So be sure to set a reminder, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and be sure to join us on a regular basis. We are a welcoming group of people and a welcoming family here on the Illegal Curve YouTube channel and all the good folks in the chat. Glenn Ryland, the winner of the Illegal Curve merchandise contest. Glenn, Dave will be in touch with you, but you can also send him an email, dave@illegalcurve.com, or you can slide into his DMs at ICDave. We love all of you from Pennsylvania to California to North Kildonan to East Kildonan to Transcona to Sage Creek to Flin Flon and all points of town in between. We all appreciate you all joining us here on the Illegal Curve post-game show and Saturday mornings on the Illegal Curve YouTube channel. We'll be back at it on Thursday evening following the Jets and the Maple Leafs. So be sure to set a reminder to join us on Thursday. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast, and leave us some feedback for wherever you watch the show. We always love to hear from you about what you're liking and disliking. Big thanks to all the sponsors of Illegal Curve. Frosty, I hope you're ready, who make the post-game show, the Saturday show, and the website a possibility. That's our friends at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Linden Market Dental Center, Zappia Group Realty, Betway, Tough Duck, Boston Pizza, Seagram's, Rolly's Transfer, Grid Park, and the Keg support these fine businesses because of their continued support of illegal curve hockey. Jets lose 4-1 tonight in Montreal. Look for a better result on Thursday in Toronto. Until then, for Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mandel. Thanks for joining us. This has been the Illegal Curve post-game show.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast from Illegal Curve Hockey. For more great Illegal Curve content, subscribe to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel, follow @Illegal Curve on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and visit your online home for hockey in Winnipeg, illegalcurve.com.